Okay. What did he say?
How are my fellow Kiwanians? I am so happy to see you. It is such a good group. The rain didn't keep us in, and we're happy to be here. I do want to introduce Dawn Rayner is the owner of Meadow Restaurant, and she is with us today because in the rain, the folks that were supposed to come and serve did not show up. So we want to thank Dawn for driving up to Raleigh. It's also a great day to be a Kiwanian. Kids need Kiwanis, and Kiwanis needs you. So thank you. Please join me in sharing our defining statement. Kiwanis is a global organization of volunteers dedicated to improving the world, one child and one community at a time. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Bailey, will you share the invocation with us?
Our prayer today was given recently by a Rotarian in Bellingham, Washington, and I thought it was particularly relevant to our Kiwanis Club today, so please bow with me. Lord of the universe, one of your wise ministers said recently, you can judge a person by his checkbook stubs. As Kiwanians, we are generally blessed with lives of relative luxury and opportunities unknown to many. Help us to review our checkbooks and indeed the registers of our lives with honesty as we consider our priorities and our opportunities to help others. Open our hearts and our accounts to those in need while still providing us with appropriate fruits of our own labors. Help us to share not only our tangible wealth, but also our intangible riches of knowledge, leadership, and creativity to make our city, our nation, and our world a better place filled with peace and love that you can bring to us. Amen.
Thank you for sharing our invocation. Did you want to lead us in song, John?
No, I was looking at the one I came up with was 53.
All right, what is 53?
Oh, come on, you faith.
Okay, so John is going to lead us on page 25, song number 53, "O Come, All Ye Faithful." So John, get us started. I'm stepping away from the mic.
All right, stand up. Here we go. Christmas in July, right?
There's no reason why.
Here we go. All right. Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye to bed. Come and behold him, born a King of angels. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Now we will introduce our guest. If you have a guest, Buck has the microphone, and raise your hand and stand up and we'll bring you the microphone. I know we have some guests. Yep.
It's my pleasure today to have Sam register with me. He's our trainer. I'm my trainer at the Y, and don't blame him for my condition. He just started a couple of weeks ago. Anyway, Sam grew up in Raleigh, lives near 5 Points, retired from the N&O, and has a wife named Karen and 2 adult children.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. Come back again and join us. We have some other guests.
Good afternoon. I have with me today Mr. Doug Brody. He's a gentleman I mentioned last time I spoke about the dictionary project. He's been coming to this club off and on as a visitor for about 30 years, and he was instrumental in helping us with the dictionaries getting into Leesville Elementary School.
Welcome.
And I am a member of the Raleigh Midtown Club.
You
So
are?
I am official.
There you go.
Well, good to have you. Welcome. Any other guests? Let's see, do you have the sheet?
Have you got a guest? Says on here you do.
Okay, so that's
Somebody must-
fantastic.
Let me go right into membership welfare. We have a number of membership welfare items you need to be aware of. First of all, we want to give our condolences to John Collar. He lost his brother-in-law. I hope you'll remember John and his family and his extended family, because this is a very tough time for them. John, we're thinking about you. Also, Roger Hornberry's mother passed away. Roger is a longtime member of the club and is always a sponsor of the pancake breakfast. And we want to remember Roger in our prayers. Courtney's husband is having surgery today. As you know, he has a form of blood cancer, and we just don't know what's going to happen. We just need to be in a lot of prayer for that family and be thinking about them. And if you get an opportunity, call Courtney and let her know what's going on. Tarver Simons has had eye surgery, and it did not go well. So be thinking about Tarver. You know how much Tarver loves to be here and to have a meal with us and to talk with all of us. So think about Tarver, and it would be a good time to give him a call.
Thank you, Buck. And it's so good to see everyone online. We're glad to have you with us today, so thank you for joining us. And now we'll move right into the announcements. So Cricket just shared, we have the Salvation Army on the 4th Friday of the month, which is July 28th. Do we have 2 members that would like to serve from 4:30? Okay, I've got Bob Goodell and I've got Robbie Wooten. Thank you very much, and class, that's wonderful. And Cricket will remind you and reach out to both of you, so thank you. We also have the pancake breakfast on October the 22nd, that's Saturday. If you want to volunteer, please reach out to Jason. If you want to help with the tickets, Gwen is helping with tickets, or if you want to work on sponsorships, Francis is helping with sponsorships. So at the next meeting, we'll get all the committee chairs to stand up so you can see who they are. Please get involved. It's our second pancake breakfast since we've returned, since COVID, and we're expecting good things and want you all to be involved. And Robert shared with our club that we're having a membership drive in September, but he's going to share more in the coming weeks about the time and some more details to come. So stay tuned. And now I'd like for Hugh to introduce.
Yeah, the guest that I forgot signed up to be my guest today. I apologize. Peter Clarence, if you want to come up. So happy hot summer days. Good for pools, not good for child hunger, as we know. It's the time of the year when the kids are not in school and they don't have access to their free and reduced meals like they're used to. So I'm excited. We've got our committee together and we're going to kick off our annual food drive. Make sure we don't have kids going hungry this summer. So you all remember that we support the Urban Ministries Food Pantry. And right now they're serving 80 to 100 families each week with fresh produce grown from their community gardens and non-perishables that they purchase, with wholesale pricing. And our donations help keep all that on the shelves. It's really important. Now that said, we're going to mix things up a little bit this year. The committee has decided we've gotten connected with another group that's doing a similar program, and so we're going to also support the Interfaith Food Shuttle. They've got a summer meals program as well that's through their culinary department where they're actually preparing individual meals. And so for this week and next week, our donations, we're going to go hard for the Urban Ministries Food Pantry. And then the following 2 weeks, I'm going to bring someone in to talk about what their program is, and we're going to touch them on the second 2 weeks. So today I've got Peter Morris, he's the director of Urban Ministries. I know we've met many times, and Clarence runs the food pantry. So I'm going to have them speak briefly about their impact in the community and how we help. Now, in previous years, we've raised anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000 because of your generosity to this program. Last year, I don't know if you remember, but we did more than $18,000. And with the corporate match that they had in place, I think we got them to $50,000 towards their programs, and that was a huge impact. So that's all due to y'all's generosity. So this year's number is $30. That's what it costs them to feed a family for a week. And so I want you to keep that in mind when you're deciding how to help. So if you see on the tables, I've got our cards for this year. And just like before, we've got 2 ways that you can help this program, and that's with a check payable to Urban Ministries. I can collect those from you, you can mail them in, or we've got a QR code right there. They've set up a fundraiser for us online, so you can scan that with your phone and make a payment with a credit card, and every bit helps. So $30 is the number. I'm going to turn it over to Peter here and let them speak just briefly about what we do. Thank you again for your generosity to this important program.
Thank you for the introduction. It's always a pleasure to come and be with the Kiwanis Club. Y'all have been supporting Urban Ministries' Hunger and Nutrition Program literally for years, and you're one of our largest cash donors. I think you know that in the years past, we did actually accept product drives, but product drives during the pandemic were a challenging thing to do. If you're not congregating, if you're not, church is not getting together, if a civic organization is meeting by Zoom, it doesn't happen. So we sort of invented the virtual food drive. There's an advantage to the virtual food drive for y'all, and that is that we buy wholesale, you buy retail. And the goal is for us to try to fill those needs. The numbers that you gave are just a slight bit wrong, and I think Clarence will tell you more about that as our manager, but we're feeding 85 families a day, which is an increase of pre-pandemic from 43 to 85. Additionally, we're feeding 150 families per week whose social workers and case managers came to us and said, these families don't have transportation, they can't get to your drive-through. So if pre-pandemic, we served about 23,000 families with children, 51,000 was our number this past year. We're greatly indebted to the support you give us so that we can move from pre-pandemic spending less than $300 a week on food to in the pandemic spending $5,000 a week on food. Supply chain is real. It's hard to find product. It's hard to find affordable product. But because of you, more are being fed. I'm going to introduce Clarence Wynn, manager of our program, and let him tell you more about how we do what we do each and every day.
Hey guys, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do. So we feed 85 cars a day, and that's 340 families a week. And so we started 3 different ways where we can actually impact the community. And so we started working with social workers who have people identified in their system who need the most resources, and that's including food. Then we also started working with schools as well. So we're in about 11 Wake County public schools, and we make sure we get in those schools and make sure those kids have all the food that they need. Or so we give about, let's see, we're in 11 Wake County public schools. We give snack foods as well as orange juices, Nutri-Grain bars, Pop-Tarts, chips, to make sure when these kids go to school that they have something in their stomach. And I question people with, when I was in school, breakfast was the most important meal of the day. And I question it with, what if these kids aren't having dinner the night before? So it's very important for us to get in these schools and make sure that we're making sure these kids are getting all the nutrients that they need to have their brains clicking on all cylinders. And so that's what we're doing with the schools. So with social workers, we feed an additional 150 families a week on top of the 340 families. So we're exhausting ourselves on so much that we have going on. So with generous donations like yours, it goes a long way, and it helps us do what we do in the community. And I just wanted to share a personal story about myself, and on all three phases about what we do. I'm gonna turn my phone off because this is a little bit personal for me. I was once a family in a pantry line, and so I sympathize with everybody who comes through our line, and I make sure that they're treated to the utmost respect, and they don't feel like that they're just a piece of crap in society, because I had that phrase to me one day in the line, and so I make sure that they're treated with the utmost respect, and it's very important to me, because if without a pantry line, me and my family probably wouldn't have survived. And for two, what we do with social workers, I had a social worker growing up, and she impacted my life in the most positive way. I don't think that I would be in this type of field of work today where I want to serve people. And so she definitely helped me change my life. So working with social workers is just as important to me as well. And then once we get to schools and we talk about schools, I was once a kid who went through the line, and we had, most kids go through the lunch line and pay, and I was one of those families who had to type in a number, and you get your free lunch. But for me, it was what people don't think about with these kids, or it was embarrassing for me to even have to type in that number, because once I did, everybody knew that I was labeled as this person in society that didn't have much. And so some days I would go to school and then I just wouldn't eat, and I would just be too embarrassed to type in that number. So the work that we're doing with these kids today, I want to make sure that there's nobody who felt like how I felt and felt embarrassed enough to go through those lines and take advantage of these opportunities and resources that we're trying to provide for them. And just make sure we're doing the most that we can do. And so every three aspects of what we do in out of Urban Ministries, as far as out of our hunger and nutrition program, it is very important to me, because I was once those people. And like I said, I just wanted to share that with you to show that the donations that you guys give us, that it will be going to a good place. And I'm driven by everything we can do in the community. So I just want to say I thank you again for having us, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I mean, there's really no reason to follow that story except for one. And that is, y'all may have heard of a relatively new foundation in town called the Four Others Foundation. Everything they do is by match. And what Four Others has told us is that if we can raise $25,000 for our food pantry, they will give us $25,000 for our free and charitable clinic. So everything you do will not only help kids and families who come through our food program, but also will help the uninsured in our community, who, even when Medicaid expansion occurs, there'll be well over 60,000 uninsured residents of Wake County. So we ask your help, and we appreciate everything you do. Love that you're going to be working with Interfaith Food Shuttle. They're one of the two food banks in town. Interfaith Food Shuttle is a food bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina is a food bank. They're the wholesalers of this world. The urban ministries of this world are the retailers. We get our product from them and then redistribute it out to people. And you're the ones who help us do that. Thank you for this time. Thank you for everything you do.
So I'm going to ask Bill and Sam to come this way, but Peter, thank you. Clarence, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for your great work. They're going to stay afterwards, so you guys want to pull out some checkbooks or have some cash in your pocket. Let's be generous and help our friends in the community, urban ministries. So thank you. So this is an exciting part of Kiwanis life. We have a new member. This member attended orientation a while back, but he has been a very busy man. So we're happy that he's here today. Sam Strait, I'm welcome, and I'm going to let his sponsor tell you a little bit about Sam before we go through the introduction.
Well, my name's Bill Burlington, and I've told you in the past a little bit about Sam's work background. He comes to us from a senior position at GlaxoSmithKline and also taught in the NC State School of Management for a number of years. But I thought I'd tell you a little bit about him as a person. Sam is my neighbor, and he's one of those neighbors that everybody in the neighborhood knows and everybody likes. He just called me this week to remind me that I had my recycle can out, and today was the day that they were going to do garbage waste. He's the kind of person who sees that Amazon has been there and you're not home, and he rescues your packages from the porch pirates. He bakes cookies and brings you cookies. He's just a very thoughtful person with a big heart, the kind of heart that I think our club needs. So I'm really happy that Sam is finally joining us today. He's been out with his son at the World Series of Poker in Las Vegas. And so today was finally our time to get together and get Sam in the club.
So today, we're very pleased that you have chosen to be a part of our Kiwanis family. And Bill Burlington, thank you for bringing him. Thank you for sharing your neighborhood and your friends. We're happy. The vision of Kiwanis is to have a positive influence in communities worldwide, so that one day all children will wake up in communities that believe in them, nurture them, and provide support that they need to thrive. Sam, having indicated a desire to become an active member of our club, having been approved by the board of directors as a member and having gone through club orientation, do you agree to embrace the vision of our club and the Kiwanis organization? Fantastic. We welcome you. And we're so glad that you're here to this global organization of volunteers dedicated to improving the world by one child, one community at a time. On behalf of the club, please give Sam a big welcome. You have your pen, yeah. And now we're going to get Buck to introduce our speaker.
Our speaker today, we are continuing in a series to try to let you know what is happening in Raleigh and what is in Raleigh that you might not know totally a lot about. And I think this is one of them. We have Dr. Megan Jacob. She is a professor of veterinary medicine and director of college support and external relations at the North Carolina School of Veterinary Medicine, which is part of NC State University. She is a native of Wyoming. That's something we don't get much. Wyoming's not that big a state, but we're glad she's here. She came to North Carolina after completing her undergraduate work in microbiology at the University of Wyoming, and then she got an MS and a PhD in veterinary pathology at Kansas State University. She did post-doctoral research in epidemiology and ecology of foodborne pathogens. Good Lord, those words are hard to say, okay? She has expertise in global health and infectious disease. She's a member of the American Society of Microbiology. And please welcome, to let you know something about our very fantastic veterinary medicine school, Dr. Megan Jacob.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you all. I thought I would tell you a little bit about myself and my path and then talk about the vet school. And then we'll open it for questions and answers. In my experience in talking with the community, many people have taken their pet to the vet school at some point or had to seek advice on how to manage a complicated pet situation. So I'd be happy to share those stories with you. I grew up on a farm in southeastern Wyoming. My dad was a production manager for what's now Mash-Offs. They used to be Smithfield, so he did pigs. And so I grew up with that population mindset. How do we manage large amounts of people or animals and manage disease risk in those? And that was my interest. Actually, my mom is a state Supreme Court justice for Wyoming. So when I went to school, I thought I would be a lawyer following that footstep. And as soon as somebody said they were interested in microbiology, I thought that sounded a lot more interesting. So I switched my major in freshman orientation. In college, I worked at the Wyoming State Diagnostic Lab. That's where I really developed my passion. We have a lot of chronic wasting disease. We did some brucellosis outbreak work there. They had some relationships with Wyoming Game and Fish where we would do investigations into why different animal populations were dying. We'd test rabid bats, things like that. And so thought about how to pursue that interest in infectious disease management and animal health. And so I went to Kansas State, and the program that I got into, and I tell mentees this now, it's not so much about the project that you pick, it's more who you network with, who your mentor is, who they can connect you with. And so I kind of transitioned and did food safety work. So I can tell you a full risk assessment of that beautiful buffet in the back, and you're all in good shape. But I was telling the table earlier, now my interest is in pathogen control at animal interactions, public animal interactions. So for me, I would like to envision a world where we can introduce kids to agriculture in a safe way. And I'm sure you read in the papers that sometimes that's a challenge because we'll have petting zoos or state fairs or county fairs where kids can go and experience what that world looks like, but then they leave with a disease that they didn't come in there having, because those animals carry that normally, naturally, nothing wrong with the animals, but kids will get sick. So I work in that field a lot now, and on antibiotic resistance as well. I currently live out near Wendell. We have about 20 acres, and I have 3 kids, all in Wake County Public Schools. My oldest daughter is gonna start at Athens Drive this fall. They have an animal science program there that she's gonna do. My middle daughter's at Centennial Campus Magna Middle School, and my son's at Lake Myra. So we keep them busy with various sports and other activities, but they also help us run the farm, and we have a sheep business that's kind of exclusively theirs. So they help us decide who we're gonna breed, who we're gonna deliver. They help deliver lambs, doctor lambs, show lambs. They're actually in Winston-Salem today, showing lambs at the North Carolina Sheep and Goat Roundup. So that's a big part of our life still. So it's probably not a far stretch for you to imagine why I was drawn to the College of Veterinary Medicine. So I'll talk a little bit about our mission and purpose there, and then I can talk a little bit more about my specific role. But our mission as a land grant institution is to do extension and teaching and research. And so we first prioritize educating veterinary students. These are all students that have their bachelor's degrees. They've gone to 4 years of undergrad. We have a good relationship with NCA&T, NC State, and when the college was set up about a little over 30 years ago, when that was approved by the legislature, they made a program by which we have to accept 80% of our students from North Carolina. So we know that we're getting a lot of in-state students. That's not the model at all vet schools. A lot of vet schools make a lot of money on out-of-state tuition, but we're very proud at North Carolina State that we have so many North Carolina students. This next year, we're gonna enroll 116. When I started 12 years ago, that was 80. So we're increasing the number of students by 4 because we recognize the big need for veterinarians in the community. Certainly there's different sectors where that's a bigger problem. We really struggle with, as a industry, to find enough food animal veterinarians to go out and serve the agricultural and rural communities. We have a lot of students that are interested in companion animal medicine now, so that's the predominant discipline that they select. But we do offer many. We have focus areas in companion animals, in zoologic medicine, cattle, sheep, horses, so food animal or equine. You could do public health and epidemiology, or research-based tracks. So there's different areas that students could select. They're going through the same core curriculum, but then they take different elective classes and have different mentors to help them get focused in those areas. So 116 students, 4-year curriculum. We have everything that we need to do that on the NC State CVM campus. There are some colleges, as an example, I was just mentioning that Clemson just approved a new veterinary school, so they're going to open in 2026 with their first class. And they'll go through 3 years of what we call didactic lectures, where they're in the classroom, like you remember from school. And then they'll be distributed out into the community to do their clinical education. But we have the big, beautiful hospital up the road here, and so we do most of our clinical training actually on site. We have a specialty hospital that we call the Terry Center, and that operates just like a specialty human hospital. We have a neurology service, a cardiology service, a dermatology service. So you could pick whichever specialty service you would need. And that usually works by referral. So you would have a pet with a problem, take that to your primary veterinarian, and then they would say, oh, this is too complicated, we're gonna send it to NC State. That's how most of those specialty services work. We do have an emergency room, an ER clinic, so sometimes they get tailored in that way. If you have an emergency, then we'll get them into those specialty services. We also have an equine hospital, and we have a food animal hospital, and then we also do what we call field service or ambulatory, where we'll take trucks and students and go to a producer or an owner's farm to do veterinary care there. So this clinical education is really important. It's a big economic impact to our college. It allows us to really give students the best quality education by having access to state-of-the-art care. So we're really proud of that building as well. As part of that, when that was built, again, about 30 years ago, North Carolina already had the established state veterinary diagnostic lab system. So one of the interesting features of how diagnostic labs work in North Carolina is we have up the road Rollins Diagnostic Lab, which would serve a lot of folks that need specific testing or outbreak investigations. And to not compete with them and to have a different mission, we do offer some of those same services, but we really don't publicize that unless you're a patient of the vet school, because we really want to respect that system existed. We also have a really big research enterprise. And when we start to talk about national rankings, which we're very proud, we're in the top 5 of a little over 30 accredited veterinary schools in the US. Research dollars matter, and so we've worked a lot over the last several years to bring in high caliber researchers. So we do seek a lot of NIH funding using what we call comparative medicine. So although we're doing a lot of that research in dogs and cats, it's kind of with the understanding that that's a model for what it would look like in human disease. So we call that comparative medicine, lots of different examples. A lot of people know of sort of pig valves for hearts, things like that. That's comparative medicine. So we have a pretty big research program, and that's certainly the priority of the new dean, is to continue to grow that and to continue to sort of seek leadership in that area. So research, clinics, teaching, all very important. And I'd be happy to answer specific questions or better describe any of those areas. I would say the one other piece of information I'd like to share is we don't do a lot of work on site at that campus for the swine and poultry industries in this state, but we do recognize how important they are to the state of North Carolina. So we have a lot of emphasis there, more in our extension type work, where we will hire faculty that will go out to those farms and help build up those areas, but we don't see those pigs and poultry coming in. It's more of an external type of relationship. So that being said, I would be happy to open the floor or dive into any of those topics a little further.
How are your rates set for your fees? We had an experience, and I was shocked at how much it costs.
Yeah.
And it would seem like you need the patients to be able to teach your students.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, how are the rates and fees established? Ooh, and that's a complicated question, which I'm happy to try to tackle. Just follow my path for a minute. So one thing is we actually can have them be a little bit higher because we can't take everything that the community has to offer and still give a good educational experience. We recognize that it takes longer to train students. So often if people come to visit the vet school, it's a little bit longer appointment than they may be used to at their primary care clinic. So rates are actually one way in which we can control what type of patients we see a little bit. So the hospital portion of the vet school operates kind of like a business. And so they have business models that say, here's their expenses and here's the revenue targets that we have, not to make money, but we have what we call practice plan to support efforts that don't make money. So not all of our services up there are designed to make a profit, and so we cover that in other areas. So I would say every year they're reviewed by a hospital board of directors, and we kind of know what marketplace competitors offer, and there's a thought to what rates impact the types of cases that are going to be really good for teaching students, and all of that goes into what the final fee is. Oh, yes.
Just a rough guesstimate. How many counties do not have a big, large animal vet, and how many counties do not even have any kind of vet at all?
Yeah, I wish I could. I've heard those numbers. I wish I could give them back to you, but it's a large number of counties that don't have a food animal veterinarian. It's fewer that don't have a veterinarian at all. It's mostly rural agricultural areas that don't, and it's more than 10 for sure.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What is the largest or most exotic animals that you've provided veterinary services to?
Good question. We see all sorts of cool stuff. We see axolotls. A few years ago, I was working on a case with a sloth, which is funny because when you go to poke it, it doesn't like the needle, but it's like it takes it 5 minutes to react to you trying to put the needle in it. So we have a lot of partnerships with the North Carolina zoos and aquariums. So we do all sorts of interesting exotic animals. And we have a lot of plans in place for that. We see gorillas and other large primates, and so that's a safety concern. We'll see tigers and lions. I'm trying to think if there's something. I think the sloth was probably the coolest, though.
Yeah, what is the ratio between large animal and small animal students in the school?
Yeah, very good question. The question was, what's the ratio for large animal and small animal students? Usually we see about 80. I'm gonna use about 100 because that's our most current class size. We see about 80 that are companion animal focused, and then we'll see 8 that are food animal or mixed animal focused. Mixed just means they'd like to do dogs, cats, or sheep, goats, cattle. Some exotics, and then some equine out of that as well. So not very many. We do have a program that we call the Food Animal Scholars Program. So a student could come into NC State, usually they're in the animal science department, and they could declare their interest to be a food animal veterinarian. And we have 8 guaranteed seats for those folks in our incoming class, and that's going to increase with class size as well. So if a student in undergrad knows that that's what they'd like to do, we have a program that kind of takes a lot. I don't mean it to sound not stringent, but it takes the competition out for them to get those seats. So we're trying to recruit and attract those. And then they're connected to veterinary school mentors at the undergraduate level.
Really, 2 questions. Recognizing that there are a limited number of vet schools in the United States, roughly how many applicants would you have for your 116 positions? And second, what roughly would be the cost of tuition for a 4-year veterinary degree?
Yeah, two great questions. So to start with the first, which is how many applications we get. So we have usually between 200 and 300 in-state applications for those 80 to 90 seats. So the success for in-state students is actually pretty high. We get 3,000 out-of-state applications for 20 seats. So that's a lot more competitive. What was the second part? Remind me. Oh, the tuition. Yes, the tuition. Most students pay about $250,000 for their veterinary degree in state. Out of state would be more. Now, North Carolina, you get your in-state after living here a year. So most of them transition after that first year to be in-state students. But that is a huge challenge in our industry, is the financial burden that students incur. And to speak to the fees rate, I think there's just a model of veterinary care being less expensive. But the challenge now is to actually make money and not exchange your work for eggs or whatever somebody could afford to pay you with. Fees are going up, and that's been a shock to a lot of people. And one thing I meant to mention is in human healthcare, they deal with that maybe poorly, but with insurance. And so pet insurance is increasingly popular, and I would invite you to consider that if you have a pet. For horses or companion animals, it's a very affordable way to seek good veterinary care.
Over 70 years ago in Iowa State, we didn't have food animals. We called them large animals.
Yeah.
We didn't have small animals. And so I had a lot of friends who were in the vet med school. I was interested later on. I looked at the University of Minnesota maybe 10 years ago. Their freshman class was 116, all women.
Yeah.
So what's the gender distribution?
Yeah, the question is on the gender distribution of our students right now, and that's exactly right. We have completely flipped. So we're about 80 to 85% women in our classes right now. And it's not due to anything other than who's applying. In fact, we try to actively recruit males that would be good fits for the program, but it has completely flipped. You're right.
You mentioned NC State is ranked number 5 nationally. Who are the top 4 vet schools in the United States?
Yeah, and actually, I think we're tied for 4 last I knew, so I didn't mean to misspeak on that. So Cornell is typically considered number 1, UC Davis, and then Colorado State, and then Ohio State and North Carolina State are interchangeable.
Question.
Yeah.
What role is veterinary medicine playing in epidemiology of COVID and similar animal to human infections?
Yeah, good question. And I'll be honest, the first place my mind went is I was tasked with building the NC State COVID testing lab in 2019. So my labs did 10,000 tests a week for all the state employees that work for us and the students. And part of that's because we have that expertise to do population level diagnostics. So we could get a high throughput. And what I mean by that is like lots of samples flowing through space. So I think the other aspect is most veterinarians and environmental science focused people talk about One Health. And I don't know if that's a term any of you have heard, but One Health is really, it doesn't matter if it's people, animals, or the environment, they're all interconnected. So whatever we're doing in one of those influences the others. And I think veterinarians have really taken the lead in that idea, probably because of the, I'm going to use another word, I don't mean to stress fuck out over there, but zoonotic risk. So what I mean by that is diseases that are in animals that can be transmitted to people. Flu being one, right? We know, and people will have heard about, I don't like this term, but bird flu or swine flu, but flu viruses exist in those animals that can then change and be adapted for humans. SARS-CoV-2 might be another example of that. So veterinarians really take the lead in that One Health dialogue. And I think our training in population assessment was really impactful in the pandemic. Did that answer your question? Okay.
It's a little bit odd question, but like 40 years ago, my wife and I had a cat.
Okay.
Cat lost all the fur on its tail, nothing but just like cartilage. We took it to the vet. The vet said, I think your cat has a dermatological problem. I'm going to refer you to a cat dermatologist. So we took the cat to the dermatologist. The vet looks at the cat and says, your cat doesn't have a dermatological problem per se. Your cat's problem is psychological. And I said, are you going to refer us to a cat psychologist? And he said, no. He said, you both work. Your cat's at home. It's lonely. It pulls its fur out. Get another cat. We did. Perfect. So that's a preface to this question. That's 40 years ago. 40? Yeah, 40. So 40. So, but my question is this. The psychology of animals, the emotional needs of animals, et cetera, be it companion or large animals. Is there any study of that? Yeah. Is there any teaching of that to help diagnose and that kind of thing? Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, we just opened a feline medicine kind of specialty area, and a lot of that focuses on handling and behavior. So we do hire behavior, we call them behaviorists, that study animal behaviors and have a service where you can come and chat with a psychologist about how to alter their behavior. I would say most of that work is in understanding pain more than little quirks of loneliness. You know, I've heard about like Weimaraners that'll rip their nails out, similar sort of things with anxiety, but there are people that focus on that. It is a course in the 4-year curriculum where there's a behavior course that they would be exposed to, and lots of work around understanding what pain is in animals. Yeah.
So I've got to preface this question. I had a client, I'm a lawyer, I had a client, a veterinarian, who's explained to me the difference between practicing taking care of Fido and Carrie and practicing halfway from here to the coast. Mm-hmm. And in that situation, when the ability to pay for an x-ray is offered and the patient takes the animal back to the truck, says he'll think about it, and the next thing you hear is the gun going off, shooting the dog out in the parking lot of the vet because they're not going to put the money in it. And so my question is, people spend a lot of money in Raleigh and Cary. People either don't have it or not expecting to have to spend that kind of money on an animal in many counties in North Carolina. Is there any third-party pay, or how do we bridge these economic divides in rural and urban North Carolina?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I actually think I don't have the answer necessarily, but I really think it's interesting to think through. And my experience growing up rural and then seeing the fancy facilities that we have here brings that out all the time. We'll have people spend $250,000 to save a horse. Now, where I grew up, there's just not that kind of money, or they wouldn't put that priority in, right? So there's actually conversation about what's the ethics in spending so much money to keep something alive. And then you have the complete opposite end, which is something that would be very treatable or reasonable that people are unwilling to put money in. So we really see this huge continuum. And certainly in urban areas, we lean a little bit more towards the right side of that, where we have people that have that money to spend, and in rural areas we don't. A lot of practices will have what we call like Good Sam accounts. So if a veterinarian finds that there is an animal that somebody can't seek treatment for, then they'll go to this pot of money that exists to pay for that treatment. I know that we have that at NC State. I've heard a lot of other practices do that as well. So I think you could work at a local level with the veterinarian specifically to do that, but programmatically wise, I don't know how to tackle that. And it really is not only a challenge, but a difference in priorities between what those folks are considering something that would be valuable and why that's valuable versus not. So it's a little bit more sociological as well.
So my question is about the state vet, and I'm thinking of this in regards to if someone thinks they've been bitten by a dog with rabies, so that comes to Raleigh. Is that at NC State? And what else is that state vet? Is that Is it a paid position? Is it a government position? I was
Yeah,
just
good question. So the public health response like that, there's actually two entities, but the state vet is through NCDA, so through the state system. They're right down the road. We work with them a lot, but they do that response. There's a state public health veterinarian as well that does a lot of the rabies response. So we'll interact with them when a patient shows up that we think might be a rabies suspect, or that we do a lot of what we call necropsies. I don't know if everybody knows what an autopsy is, but investigating the cause of death. That's one way that we train students. That's a required course that they have to go through. And so if an animal comes in for a necropsy, then we might consider rabies, and then we would interact with the state rabies lab or the state veterinarian, but those are different entities.
Megan, let me just say one thing. If anybody has an opportunity to take a tour of the veterinary hospital, I took one 5 years ago, and I was blown away with what's out there. In fact, I said on the way out, if I ever have to have heart surgery again, I want it here, not at Wake. So, it's a great place.
Yeah, please reach out. We'd be happy to tour you through. Enjoy showing. And if you don't know, the NC State Veterinary School offers an open house every March where we open the doors and we get about 10 to 12,000 people that walk through. It's great for kids. We set up like suture stations for teddy bears. They can come in and learn how to stitch something up. So usually March 26th, 28th, somewhere right in there, CVM open house.
About 20 years ago, go ahead. About 20 years ago, our Kiwanis Club was hosted by you guys and girls out there. And of course, we had the food catered out there. But why don't you consider doing that, is bringing us out to the vet school for a meeting one Friday?
Okay, well, Buck, you want to follow up with an email?
Follow up with you.
Okay.
I will say- Dr. Javik, thank you so much for sharing with us. We donate a book to the school system, and we're going to ask you to sign it because we will donate it in honor of you. So thank you. And I have to say, while she's signing that, Roger and I were dipped for hook, foot, and mouth when we left Wales and going into England a few years ago. So it's not so bad if you have to be dipped. I'm just teasing. I grew up on a farm. Thank you for speaking. It's near and dear to my heart. I raised sheep. That's how I went to school. So thank you and good luck.
Thank you so much.
So Dr. Jacob, Peter, Clarence, Sam, Sam's a member, and Doug. Please, there he is. Please come back, join us. We'd love to have you be a part of our community, a good group doing good things in the community, and you all are doing that, so come be a part of our group as well. I hope everyone remembers to step to the back. We want to welcome Sam as our newest member and sign his apron in the back to welcome him. Have a fantastic weekend. Be safe, be careful, and Buck's going to take over next Friday. I'm traveling for work, and I will miss you all.